I'm a lawyer. I do civil rights employment law. I have an office here in Stony Point. I also did 29 years in the Army Reserve with tours of duty, 3 years in Germany, a year in Iraq, and 9 months in Afghanistan. In 2012, I retired as a lieutenant colonel. So I've done Army law, Army criminal prosecutions. I decided when I came back I was going to not get involved in politics ever again because enough was enough. But what I've seen in Rockland after my return in 2012 from Afghanistan, I decided I need to get involved again. I see the politics as becoming so corrupt, and I don't say it in a large C corrupt payoffs, but I see it small c corrupt. You know, people doing favors and favors. It's so corrupt that we may have a situation this election day coming where the same candidate for district attorney will be the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate. And that's an abomination. That's democracy failing us and our politicians and political leaders in Rockland County failing us. So I'm running because I decided somebody with my background and experience needs to be on the ticket so people have a choice in November. And so I'm giving it a go as an independent. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but when I addressed the Democratic County Convention with my views, I got heckled off the podium when I brought up the issue that Hasidic children in this county, ultra-Orthodox children, are not receiving an adequate, sound, secular education. I find it an abomination that any American child, when he or she turns 18, doesn't speak the English language, doesn't know the basics of our history, U.S. history, world history, the basics of our democracy, doesn't understand basic science.
Let me ask you, where were you when you got hissed off the podium, when people reacted that way?
I specifically, I said that I was going to campaign and walk into New Square with my campaign advocating for sound secular education of Hasidic children. I got ridiculed immediately with that. And then I said, in front of the whole audience of Democratic committeemen of this county, that if no candidate for countywide office can walk into any community, any village or town in this county without being basically prevented from doing so, that there's something wrong with our democracy. And with that, I got heckled off the podium with people saying pretty awful things, and the chairwoman, who's the sister of one of the candidates, Ken Zabrowski, telling me I was upsetting people. Well, it should be upsetting to people that children, a large number of children in this county, are not receiving a basic education. And even more importantly than that, if you have uneducated citizens, you can't have a democracy that works. It's essential to democracy, the way our founding fathers envisioned it, that we have an informed, educated electorate so that people can decide for themselves who their elected leaders will be. And in this county, as politically astute people know, the ultra-Orthodox bloc vote controls many of the elections. By the way, that's also happening in New York State, where the governor of the state has to go to the home of the Grand Rebbe to get support of the bloc in Brooklyn. You have a new town called the town of Palm Tree, which is formerly the village of Kiryas Joel in Orange County, which is essentially the first religious town in the nation. Things are happening that are posing a threat to our democracy. And I have I don't care what the religion is. I've been all over the world. Like I said, I served in Afghanistan, where I met tribal people. I've served in Germany, where I recalled the fact that my father's flew 35 missions over in a B-24 bomber over Germany during the Second World War to free the world from Hitler. I see in my military experience and my study of history how religious fanaticism, fundamentalism, can be very destructive if it's allowed to go too far. And that's why I want people children who are children of ultra-Orthodox, of, by the way, any religion. I don't care if it's Jewish, Catholic, any religion. Children should have an adequate education so that when they turn 18, when they become adults, they can make informed decisions about their future and also be good citizens and have prospects of prosperity and a future. There's a lot of criticism. I was talking with a not ultra-Orthodox, an Orthodox Jewish attorney last night who was in agreement with me totally about the ultra-Orthodox community hurting its children by not allowing them to have an adequate education. And as I see it, and as we see the ultra-Orthodox community, they have 8, 10, 12 children per family. The population is increasing dramatically here in Rockland and Orange. And I'm a civil rights lawyer. I'm never going to tell anybody what they do with their personal lives, but I can say, as a cultural matter, when you have leadership of a community who are encouraging people to live beyond their means and to basically go on welfare and food stamps and Section 8 housing and Medicaid, and for them to be in yeshivas that are substantially funded by the state taxpayers, public tax dollars going to private religious schools, we have to say, wait a minute, let's step back. Right now, the legislature of the state is not doing anything. The county legislature is not, and the governor is not. In New York City, the city has not been able and been unwilling to go into the yeshivas to see actually what is being taught, to see if it meets the requirements of the state education law. And it appears from many different sources that the education law is being frequently violated, and the children not giving an education.
How would you, as district attorney, which is what you're running for, I wanted you to repeat that numerous times before we leave you at 10, but how would you, as district attorney, try to stem this tide and reverse things?
Well, essentially it's this. I decided to run after I filed a lawsuit last year to try to force the state to become involved, and that lawsuit's pending. But in looking at this from many different angles, I've decided that the only elective official that can actually get prompt results for these children and for our democracy is a district attorney. And I'm proposing that in Rockland, I take a lead in having a dialogue with the ultra-Orthodox community to get them to comply with the state education law. And for example, I've said this before, not allowing a child to have an adequate education, in my view, amounts to endangerment of the welfare of the child, which is a crime. And I said I would prosecute that as a test case in the justice courts of this county, specifically in Ramapo, and have a Jewish jury hopefully agree with me that every child in this county is entitled to a sound secular education. And as a result, I don't want to put anybody in jail. I want to demonstrate the point and then close yeshivas that are manifestly deficient in the education that they're providing to the children, which, from what I understand, in many of the yeshivas, when a boy turns 13, he basically gets only religious instruction until he becomes an adult. And by the way, I only have Steve, the reason I paid for this program, and besides, I love the idea that you're back in business and this station's back on the air, and I congratulate you wholeheartedly in that. But I have some urgency, which is I only have 4 days to get a whole bunch of signatures to get on the ballot. So I'm asking your listeners to please give my office a call. My phone number is 845-942-0795. Give my office a call and commit to getting me 15 signatures. And what I'm going to do is if I get 50 people committing to getting me 15 signatures by Monday, by hand delivering those petitions at my home in Stony Point, I will host a barbecue, and the people can have hamburgers, hot dogs, soda, and beer on me in exchange for helping get me on the ballot, because that's essential. If I don't have 1,500 signatures by Tuesday, which is the filing deadline. I'm not going to be on the Serve Rockland party, which is my party's independent line, on Election Day, and then it might be the case that the voters have no choice. And by the way, I think if I get on the ballot, I will by far be the best choice. So I'm asking people to call me, or you can go to my website, which is diederichfordistrictattorney.com. But please call me, leave a message. I'll call you back.
Give that number again, please.
It's 845-942-0795. Call me right now. Leave a message. I'll call you back, get you information on how you can get my petition and get me a few signatures to get me on the ballot. That's the purpose of me being here, Steve.
So you really think that this could be done through the auspice or under the auspices of a Rockland County District Attorney?
I wholeheartedly believe it. The office of any district attorney is a tremendously powerful office. We see that with what the U.S. attorney does as a prosecutor on the federal side. It has not been exercised in Rockland County. The DAs, both Republican and Democratic, have not been exercising their office to fight corruption and the things that are the long-term problems that need correction. So a DA can do many different things. For example, I can bring the test case, like I mentioned, regarding the educational neglect, but also racketeering charges can be brought to fight organized welfare abuse. I'm not looking to go after any individuals for trying to survive, but when there's a systemic orchestration of abuse of governmental resources, that may amount to a crime, and that's the type of thing which I will go after the leadership of any organization that fosters crime. And there's a long history, by the way, of such financial abuse in this county by that community. I brought that up in a lawsuit I filed that's pending in the New York courts, the federal court rather.
There are many who believe that in addition to the education, which I think is deplorable, that this only came to my mind recently that this is allowed to happen and was basically sanctioned by the state, even though they kind of tiptoed around it. For example, housing, overdevelopment, things which are, and I'm not saying they aren't, but are related to, a lot of people feel the incredible burgeoning of the community. And if you agree with that, would you approach that in any way?
Well, Steve, I've addressed that, and this is it. I'm a civil rights lawyer, so I'm not going to tell people they cannot live their lives the way they want, have as many kids as they want, and be uneducated if they want. But the way I view it, the root cause problem is the lack of sound secular education, where people get enough education where they have all sorts of options when they become an adult. And by being uneducated and for example, not speaking English, look at how that handicaps the individual when they become an adult. They can't get a job. There's a wonderful book called Those Who Go Do Not Return, where the author describes how he ended up becoming an adult and he couldn't provide for his family, didn't know why. He thought everything would just automatically happen where he would have money. Nobody taught him that, no, in America you need to earn a living. And he tried his best to figure out how I'm going to support my family, and he couldn't. And that's a severe problem. Economically, if you can't support yourself, then you're going to be somebody that needs to go on Medicare and welfare. And you're also going to be somebody that might be inclined toward fraud. And you're going to be somebody who's going to be undertaking basically conduct that's the rest of the society would see as anti-social, because it's anti-social if you're not participating in the larger society. And that's what I see as a problem with the insularity of the ultra-Orthodox, is exactly the insularity. As we learn in school, and it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not, you learn about diversity. We in America learn about the value of respecting everybody's religious faith and their ethnic background. We have core American values that we learn, and those are the things that every American child should learn about: racial equality, ethnic diversity, respecting everyone's religions, and in the ultra-Orthodox community, it seems from what I read, and I've had some discussions with the leaders of that community, it seems they try to be very insular, and therefore their citizenry doesn't blend with the rest of us, and they don't have to. I'm not saying anyone needs to associate with anyone, but what I am saying is children do need to learn about diversity. They need to learn about sex education. They need to learn about biology so that they learn about vaccinations and immunization, and the fact that if they're not immunized, that you might have a measles epidemic. You need to learn about history so that you see what's happened throughout world history when religious groups start fearing other groups. You need to learn history, you need to learn science, you need to learn civics, and that's what, when I came back from Afghanistan, my initial view was I need to write a book on how all American children need a better understanding of history and science. And then I started looking at the specific issue of the Hasidic community. I thought this is really an extreme example of where, when you don't have an adequate education, problems, a panoply of problems result. And the various problems you mentioned, the zoning, the fire code violations, the measles epidemic, those are all the result of a lack of education.
Can you point to any specific data that says what percentage of young students who go through the educational system as it presently exists anyway, the way you describe it, what percentage is able to receive gainful employment, and if so, in what areas? Well,
from what I've read, I've been reading more and more, but I'm no expert in this area. From what I read, in the Hasidic community especially, because you have to distinguish between Hasidic, which is a subset of ultra-Orthodox, and some ultra-Orthodox also value education, and their kids go to Harvard and Yale and so on and so forth. But of what seems to be the majority of the Hasidic sect, they really devalue secular education and want their children to have none of it, because that's what keeps their community insular. The Grand Rebbe of the Satmar sect announced a couple months ago that it would be war if the state required secular education of Satmar Hasidic children. That is as un-American gets. We can't be saying to people, no, you don't comply with the state education law, especially when secular education is something every child should have. You're depriving the children of their civil rights when you deprive them of an education. So a lot of, to answer your question though, a number of people in the community are able to get education after yeshiva hours, and their parents give them fine separate education, and they do get educated to some degree, and sometimes to a great degree, and are able to become successful. But my concern is you can't have a situation where the normal school hours, a child is not receiving an education. You're depriving them of their childhood, basically. You're keeping them in an intellectual cage in violation of state law and international humanitarian law, because even international law recognizes that it's an individual right. People are entitled to an education, all people.
Have you contacted any educational groups like teachers' unions and I'm sure most of them are as passionate as you are about this. And are they backing you on it?
I've been very disappointed in what I've seen. It seems we've become a county of people interested in their particular interests, but not the broader public interest. And I think people are getting cynical with politics because they see politics as everybody siding either Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative. And my view is, and I'm trying to run in the middle. I'm a moderate, I'm an independent Democrat. And I think Republicans and Democrats can agree on 95% of issues. But people have not been coming forward. It's shocking to me because people privately say, oh yeah, it's horrible, but I don't see any groups, and I think people are relying on government to do it, but government is failing miserably. You can see that by the fact that I appear to be the only politician raising this issue of the lack of sound secular education of Hasidic children, and who else is talking about it? Nobody. And again, I need to get on the ballot, and I'm really need signatures. So to
reemphasize that for those who are just tuning in, this is Michael Diederich. This is a paid segment. And if you've been listening to what he's talking about, it hits home with a lot of the people who call this radio program and have for months on end. Mike needs signatures by Tuesday morning.
No, I need it by Memorial Day.
I'm sorry, by Monday. Keep giving the number if you would, and the website or whatever.
Yeah, like I said, get me 15 signatures, please. Call my office to commit. If you commit to getting me 15 signatures, if I get 50 people committing, I will host a barbecue on Memorial Day afternoon where you can drop off the petition, and then we can talk about these issues. My phone number, 845-942-0795.
942-0795?
Correct, 845-942-0795. My website is diedrichfordistrictattorney.com. And again, please call in and give me your commitment, because I'm getting a lot of people that support me with their words and very few that are helping with actual deeds, which is hard. I mean, it's work getting signatures, but it's not that much work. You can get it from your immediate family. You can make friends with your neighbors by walking door to door and say, here's an independent guy. You can make enemies with your neighbors too. It depends on how you approach them, and anywhere else you go. So it's not that hard to do it, but it does require some effort. But if you value your democracy and the future of Rockland County, I think you'll value the fact that you'd want a choice in November, and perhaps the only way you're going to have a choice is if you get me on the ballot, because it may be very likely it may be the same person on the Democratic and the Republican lines this November.
In the current DA's office right now, is there anybody who does this item ever come up? Is there any attitude such as yours that?
As you know, the DA Zugabe was elected to the Supreme Court, so now he's moved over. So the office is really vacant at the top. So this is going to be a new policy. Now, of course, obviously, I've been a prosecutor and in the Army, and I understand the most important thing for a DA is to protect the physical safety of the people of this county, and again, serious physical crime and serious property damage. But these are underlying long-term problems that need fixing now, otherwise we're heading down the wrong path. By the way, I'll also vigorously prosecute any hate crimes, any anti-Semitic violence. These are the types of things I want to avoid by creating a county where the Orthodox, the ultra-Orthodox, of Catholic, Jewish, all faiths, and the people who are not religious, where everybody can work together and appreciate and respect each other and have a better county.
And it starts with having a standardized education, same for all. It's as simple as that. I don't see how anybody can dispute that.
Well, I'm not asking for standardized. I'm asking for secular.
All right.
So you learn the basics of world history, American history, how and why this country was founded, its faults. As you know, we had slavery. There are many things this country had to survive. The Civil War, the Civil Rights era, where we learned about diversity and racial equality. There's so much history, gender equality. There's so much history and culture that you learn in school, but if you don't learn that in school, it's a void. And ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance results in problems. There's no way around that. I've seen that around the world. I've traveled. I've been in 2 combat zones. I've seen the product of ignorance and religious hatred, and it's ugly, and we want to avoid that in Rockland County. please help me get in the ballot by carrying my petition, 845-942-0795.
And the state education department, didn't they sidestep this recently when people wanted them to say at least everybody should have this secular education in order to have an attempt at flourishing in society? And I seem to recall a news story that said they sidestepped it.
That's one of the reasons I decided to run. It looked like and I think the Commissioner of Education is trying her best, but she works for the governor. And by the way, I've also spoken to the governor a couple years ago. He agreed in principle on the idea of a sound secular education, but the power of the block vote is terrorizing to politicians. I know when I ran for DA in 2003, one of the districts, the vote count was 500 to 1. Mr. Bongiorno got 500. I got 1 vote. I was the one token vote. That is so scary to politicians, so they're afraid to act. And that's why none of the politicians are speaking out on this issue. They're afraid they're going to be branded as anti-Semitic, and they're afraid to confront the issues that are basic, which is the lack of sound secular education for the children. So again, I hope people, I need to get a bunch of signatures to get in the ballot. So please, if I get 50 people calling me today, I'll host a barbecue at my house on Memorial Day. You can drop off 15 signatures. We can eat hamburgers, hot dogs, drink beer and soda. But I need your help, and the county, I think, more importantly, I don't need this aggravation. My law practice, I do employment law, I do fine. I don't need this job, but I think I want this job because the county needs somebody like me who will actually take on these powerful interests and confront the problems that we face. Otherwise, we'll just be kicking the can down the road, and problems will just get worse and worse.
You'll have to amass a staff, should you win, the office of DA, who generally agrees with your concept here, wouldn't you?
Oh, I don't think so, because I think prosecutors like the idea of prosecuting crimes where they can obtain convictions, and they also like challenges. They usually like to win more than they like challenges, but I think especially young attorneys like challenges. If you're on the side of justice and right, I know I've been around prosecutors my whole life. Prosecutors like to do good, and I'm on the right side on these issues. I have no doubt that I will have people committed to helping on these issues.
So your office number, if anybody would like to call and secure, I guess you have the paperwork of the office, right?
Well, I'm looking for people. What they can do, they can go to my website and download the petition. My website is DiederichForDistrictAttorney.com.
How do you spell Diederich, just in case I don't know?
Yeah, Diederich. So it's Diederich for District Attorney.
Diederich for District Attorney.
.com.
Yeah, .com.
But really, I think I need people to call in and commit, because if you don't commit, you're not going to do it, and then I'm not going to have enough signatures. If you call and commit, then I'll know that I have people out working. You'll be more motivated to actually get the signatures for me, and you can come to a barbecue on Memorial Day afternoon at my house.
Now, when they do call you, then how would they access the petitions?
Well, they call me, and I'll just tell them how they can either download it from my website, or I can have somebody hand deliver them a petition. It'll be easy.
And so you need 1,500. Is that right? I need
1,500 good signatures, which, as we know from challenges to signatures, I really need probably twice that number for margin of safety. But if you get them from your neighbors, I need signatures from any registered voter. So you can be Democrat, Republican, Independent, Working Families Party. You can be not affiliated with any party. Any registered Rockland County voter can sign this petition.
Now it's 845.
942-0795.
942-0795. If you need that number again after the segment is over, you can just call here, and we'll get back to you on that.
Oh, you can keep talking for a little while because I need to do something with the vault, Steve.
Okay.
So
keep going. Yeah, if you have something else to say, but I think this is very interesting. I think it's very courageous on your part. I really do. And again, Mike Diederich paid for this segment to come on and talk to the people of Rockland County who listen. And it's been a sore subject. It has been a subject that comes up. There's tremendous frustration here on the part of people who feel that it's wrong, especially from the education level of it. This is very, very wrong.
Well, it's wrong from many levels, and like I tell people, it may not concern you what education a Hasidic child gets, but when the child grows up, you know, that citizen is either going to be a better citizen or a not so good citizen, depending on how they act. And I think if we have a sound secular education, it teaches people to get involved in the larger community, not just your particular ethnic or religious group, but also the larger society, in this case the county and the state. And by the way, there was a very interesting article published yesterday called The Battle Over Role of Religion in Schools Plays Out in Ultra-Orthodox Jewish Community, and that article can be found online at citizentruth.org. It's an interesting article that describes many of these problems.
Okay, I'll give the number again, 942-0795. That's, of course, the 845 area code. The website is Diederich for DA.com. And again, this was a paid political segment. I wish you a lot of luck on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I can go back to my employment law practice. That's what pays the bills. But you know what? I'd love to get into office, and I'd love to be able to pursue this campaign so that I can hopefully be back on this show and talk more about these various issues.
Yep.
So thanks so much, Steve.
Mike, thank you.